Test, 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 test.
Remarks. Matt Lepore, the Gas Conservation Commission Director, will also have some brief remarks, and we'll have some time for questions. And just a reminder, you saw it in my advisory that Firestone Fire Protection District is the lead on this investigation. We are respectful of that. This is an ongoing investigation, so keep in mind there are constraints on questions around that. So keep your expectations where they need to be. So with that, I'll have Bob start us off.
Great. Good morning. I'll introduce myself. I'm Bob Randall. I'm the Executive Director of the Colorado Department of Natural Resources. On behalf of Governor Hickenlooper and the Colorado Department of Natural Resources, I want to express my deepest sympathies to the families of Mark Martinez and Joseph Irwin, who lost their lives in the explosion and fire in Firestone last week. Our thoughts and condolences are with the community of Firestone and with Erin Martinez in particular, who lost her husband and a brother, and who herself was gravely injured, and to her 2 young children. We know that these families' lives have been changed forever, and we grieve for their losses. I also want to assure the public that we will continue to assist in every way possible the ongoing investigation being led by the Frederick Firestone Fire Protection District. We appreciate the professionalism and dedication of the first responders and investigators involved here, and we want to acknowledge the cooperation of Anadarko in this matter. Going forward, we will ensure that the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission has the resources it needs to continue its role in this ongoing investigation, to assist in determining the circumstances associated with this tragedy, and to ensure public safety and the environment continue to be safeguarded going forward. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Matt Lepore. I am the director of the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. As the Department of Natural Resources agency closest to this investigation, I just want to echo the sentiments and our thoughts and prayers for the family, as Bob expressed. As you know from the statements by the town of Firestone and the Frederick Firestone Fire Protection District and by the Cogcc yesterday, the investigation into the cause and origin of the April 17th explosion and fire is ongoing, and a cause has not yet been determined. We are here today to provide additional information about the Cogcc's role in assisting the town and the Fire Protection District with the investigation and in our joint efforts to ensure the safety of neighboring residents and to fully understand what led to the tragedy. Cogcc Due to ongoing investigation, I may not be able to answer all of the questions you have today. As we learn more, we will provide additional information to the public and the media in a timely and efficient manner. I want to emphasize that I will not speculate or offer opinions on events. I will provide facts to the extent we have them at this time. So I want to begin with information about the well that was in closest proximity to 6312 Twilight Avenue. That well was referenced both in Anadarko statements and in the Town and Fire Protection District's joint statement. It is a vertical well. It is named the Coors V6-14JI. The well was drilled in 1993 by Garrity Oil and Gas Corporation. It was drilled to the Codell Formation to a depth of 7,912 feet. The well produces primarily gas. It does produce some oil as well. The well was situated 178 feet as measured from the wellhead to the southeast corner of the house. In 1997, the well was acquired by Patina Oil and Gas Corporation. In 2001, Patina recompleted the well to the J-Sand Formation. The well was acquired by Noble Energy in 2005, and Anadarko acquired the well in 2014. I want to pause or turn your attention to the screen where we have the Cogcc website up. And I just, for those of you who don't know, want to show you how you can get to information about the well and in general, lots of information about oil and gas operations in Colorado. So what's shown on the screen is our homepage. If you click on data on that upper ribbon, you then go to facilities. In this menu, you can choose this different kinds from the drop down, different kinds of facilities here. We'll choose well. And under facility location, name or facility, we're going to enter Coors. And I should have put a V in there before I hit return. There are a number of Coors V6, and so you'll have to find the 14J, which is right there. It's a big J,
Little I,
little I.
back,
Yep.
right beneath it. 17324.
That one?
Yep.
There you go. All right, and this is what we call our scout card. And across the top here, there are headers that will take you to additional information. Notably, if you click on GIS, you will be taken to a map, which will show the location, and our map is multi-layered. There's vast amounts of information on that map. Documents here and so forth. So just so you know, there's lots of information there, and the COGCC can help you navigate that if you are interested. I'd like to turn now to the actions that the agency has taken to date. On Tuesday, April 18th, COGCC engineering and field inspection staff responded to the scene. We have been on scene every weekday since Tuesday of last week. Our role has been primarily to provide technical support and subject matter expertise related to oil and gas operations to the Frederick Firestone Fire Protection District. On Thursday, April 20th, COGCC environmental staff responded to the scene at the request of the Fire Protection District to obtain environmental samples outside the home at 6312 Twilight Avenue, as well as the home immediately to the west. COGCC has taken actions to ensure that the 7 active wells within the Oak Meadows neighborhood are shut in. That means they're not producing hydrocarbons at this time and are secured. COGCC engineering staff have reviewed the well file for the Coors V614 big J little I and the 11 other wells drilled in the immediate vicinity, whether those wells are currently producing or have been abandoned or plugged in the interim. Yesterday, a consultant retained by COGCC used a vehicle-mounted methane and hydrocarbon detector to survey the neighborhood to determine whether there were any ongoing fugitive sources of methane or other hydrocarbon gases in the neighborhood. The survey covered the Oak Meadows neighborhood, east of Colorado Boulevard and north of Firestone Boulevard, including all north, south, and east-west surface streets, as well as some undeveloped land immediately north of Firestone Boulevard. No fugitive methane or hydrocarbon gases were detected. Beginning today, contingent on completion of utility locates, a consultant retained by COGCC will conduct a soil gas survey to sample for hydrocarbons in the environment. This is a follow-up measure to determine if any hydrocarbon gases are present in the soil in the area around 6312 Twilight Avenue. Based on all of the investigations to date, COGCC believes there is no immediate threat to the environment or public safety associated with oil and gas operations in the neighborhood. Next steps. We want to emphasize that the Anadarko decision to shut in all of its vertical wells in the basin was taken by Anadarko voluntarily and is an abundance of caution measure. When we have a more complete understanding of the circumstances involved here, we will consider whether near-term actions will be required by operators on a field-wide basis or a statewide basis to address specific issues identified as a result of this investigation. That concludes my prepared remarks, and we will take questions at this time. Ms. Dunn.
Is there a state rule that requires a certain setback for housing from existing wells?
The COGCC regulates the distance between a well, a new well, and existing building units or buildings. We have other setbacks. The COGCC does not regulate the distance that a home can be constructed from an existing well.
Follow up to that
Follow up.
really quickly. So do you think based on that, there should be something reversed, like for developers, having regulations on where to build distance-wise from wells? Is there regulation on that, or do you think there should be regulation?
The distance that homes are built from wells is under the jurisdiction of local governments at this time, and I don't have an opinion on how local governments should regulate that.
When the decision was made to shut down these wells, it was 9 days after the explosion. Why now?
That is factually inaccurate. The decision to shut in the wells was made virtually immediately after the incident.
So we just found out about it now?
Next question.
How tightly are oil and gas facilities beholden to local jurisdiction laws? I mean, you said that they have a setback. Local jurisdictions have their own setbacks, but can oil and gas companies say, we're not going to abide by that? And could the state overrule that?
No, the state cannot overrule the local jurisdiction's decision about the proximity of a home allowed to be built to an existing well.
In your experience, has there ever been a shutdown of wells on this scale in Colorado?
I want to emphasize that it was Anadarko's decision to shut in all of their vertical wells, not a direction by the state. And to answer your question directly, I am not aware of the state directing a shut-in of wells outside of actions taken during the 2013 floods.
And just to clarify.
In the back.
Matt, you referenced that I believe you said the company brought COGCC personnel into the field on April 18th. Is that correct?
COGCC personnel went to the field on the 18th at the agency's decision.
Can you tell us what it was that the company was seeing that indicated there might be some linkage between this explosion and oil and gas operation? Why did they call the oil and gas company on that?
So again, to clarify, the company did not call COGCC, and I do not know what the company was thinking. Again, to clarify, no one called COGCC. COGCC ordinarily responds to incidents of this nature involving oil and gas. So it was the agency's decision to have an engineer and an inspector go to the location.
I was trying to get at why they thought there was some oil and gas leakage on that.
I think it's not accurate to say, first of all, I don't know who they are and that anyone thought on that day there was linkage. I know that Anadarko responded on that day. I know that the Public Utilities Commission responded on that day. I know that the utility provider to the home responded on that day. Yes, ma'am.
Just to clarify, you're saying that the well directly related was shut in after the explosion, but the 3,000 wells were shut down yesterday, which was 9 days after the explosion.
I appreciate the clarification. Anadarko made a decision that they acted upon. Well, I should say that differently. Anadarko made a decision that they announced to the public yesterday. My understanding is that they made the decision earlier and began shutting in wells earlier. I do not have the exact date on which they did that. Kathy.
What inspections? Can you tell us when this well was last inspected? And second question, what are the COGCC authority and responsibility when there's conflicts between development and oil and gas projects? Is there an ongoing thing? What can you do? What are you responsible to do?
So to your first question, which was the date the last date the well was inspected, I know I have that and I'm looking for it. August 27th of 2014 was the last date the Coors V6 14JI was inspected by COGCC.
That it would be 3 years ago?
Not particularly.
Is there a standard?
There is not a standard. We have a risk-based inspection protocol. So we inspect wells based on a matrix of factors that includes things like proximity to populations, proximity to environmental sensitive impacts, ages of the well, record of inspections, records of violations, things like that.
What is your responsibility and what is your authority? What can you do and what do you do? You have wells in your homes or homes in your wells.
So again, to be clear, this subdivision was built after this well was put in. The subdivision moved south slowly towards the well. It doesn't change our protocols per se, except in the way that I just said, proximity to the well and populations being a factor that goes into the risk-based inspection protocols. So I should say that that risk-based protocol is relatively new within the last 2 years. But that is updated essentially every day because it changes based on the inputs.
Matt, given Anadarko's decision to shut in all these wells, I mean, there are legitimate concerns among homeowners in that neighborhood and all over northeastern Colorado about wells that are still active, operated by other oil and gas companies. Can you address those homeowner fears? Are they legitimate?
Well, I can't address a generic fear of oil and gas wells in their neighborhood. What I can say again is that Anadarko acted voluntarily in an abundance of caution to shut in all of its wells. That is not an action that the agency is contemplating requiring other operators to do at this time based on what we know right now.
Quick question. So if it's left up to local jurisdictions, has the commission studied at all the validity of perhaps putting some state regulations over existing wells and development? Has that been studied at all by the commission? And also, has the commission looked at all about what are some of the risks with existing wells and development?
So the response to the first part of the question is has the state considered? I think to the best of my knowledge, the answer is no, although I don't speak for the legislature and I can't tell you what they have thought about or not thought about. As you probably are aware, most of the dialogue in the state over the last several years is about granting greater authorities to local governments over oil and gas regulations. And you'll have to repeat for me the second part of your question.
Has the commission looked at all at the risk of existing wells and proximity development?
Not in a specific way or not in the way that I think you're framing your question. We have had ongoing debates in the state about the appropriate setback distances for a very long time. And again, the agency can only regulate what I've said, the distance from the new well to an existing home. And there have been lots and lots of conversations about that. Sir.
Yes, sir. Have there been any recent horizontal wells drilled in that area? And you are aware of any connection between horizontal wells like affecting these older vertical wells?
I don't know the answer to the first part of the question, whether there are horizontal wells drilled recently. You can find that out by looking at the map. That is not something that I have done up to this point. The Cogcc has taken precautions approximately, I want to say it was summer of 2013, but I'd have to double check that. There are concerns about horizontal wells being drilled and hydraulically fractured in proximity to older existing vertical wells. The state adopted a policy in 2013 or 14, pursuant to which before an operator hydraulically fractures a horizontal well, they must survey and study all of the existing vertical wells within 1,500 feet of the existing lateral portion of that well. The purpose is to understand how those wells were constructed and if they've been plugged and abandoned, how they were plugged and abandoned. Our rules, our requirements changed over time. the knowledge of the subsurface changes over time. We want to be sure that the vertical wells have been constructed or abandoned in a way that protects aquifers.
Follow up to that, have there been horizontal fractured wells in Colorado that have been drilled into vertical wells that exist in the past? I mean, has that happened?
To my knowledge, no, certainly not what you described, I would call a direct collision between a horizontal well and a vertical well. No collisions.
No collisions in Colorado.
That is my understanding of horizontal wells with existing vertical wells. Ms. Brenta.
Do you think that means that assistance, as you know, the state house is always debating it a lot, coming from an angle of, where you guys or industry part of discussion about potential land minimums at local levels or into that future discussion.
So again, I want to reiterate, I know we've said it a lot. We don't know the cause here. I think that is important to keep in mind. At this point, the discussions within the agency have not been focused on setbacks.
Just to follow up on that, are we getting too far ahead of ourselves here? Are we worrying the public before this investigation is over? I mean, why are we here talking to Cogcc? Is there evidence that this was an oil and gas related explosion, or are we just way too far ahead of ourselves right now?
I think there has been obvious attention to and scrutiny to the incident. We know there is oil and gas nearby. The agency has responded. We are here today to tell you what we've done and why we've been there.
Is there evidence at this point that has you guys concerned?
I'm not going to comment on the evidence beyond what I've said today.
The 2014 report on this well also describes it as having been shut in since 2014, and maybe we're not looking at it correctly, but if that is the case, if it's been shut in since 2014, why would, and we, it's like we're here today because there couldn't possibly be a connection between that shut-in well and this fire. Why would those 3,000 other wells that are being shut in be any safer than this well was?
So first, based on our production records, which are reported to us by the operator, the well has not been shut in since 2014. The well was in active production on the date of the incident, according to, I take that back. Our production records go through the end of February of 2017. It was producing at that time.
Okay, so it's not, and then what does shut in mean physically? I mean, literally, what do you do out there?
What it means physically is that valves have been turned in such a way that hydrocarbons are not coming to the surface.
So, like, go like this. I mean, you literally turn a valve, somebody, like you do with a water pipe at your house, right? I'm just trying to visualize it for viewers.
I'm going to say it slightly differently because I'm not the one that goes out there and does it. It is a well that is capable of production in its existing state without adding any new equipment to it.
You stress that there's safety, that these homes are safe, that people are safe. Can you elaborate on how you know that?
We are basing that statement on the environmental data that we have gathered and on input from both the Frederick Firestone Fire Protection District, primarily them as the lead agency.
Are you talking about the tests you mentioned?
In the back.
Most new wells are horizontally drilled now, so if there's a vertical well, that means it was drilled maybe in the past. Do you have an inventory of how many vertical wells there are? 50,000 active wells plus right now.
There are about 54,000 active wells in the state. About 55, maybe 5,700 horizontal wells are, I believe, active as opposed to the total number drilled. So say 5,700 horizontal wells have been drilled, 5,400 of those are active. It's something very close to that. So that means the rest are either vertical or directional.
Matt, is there any reason to think that a horizontal well or a vertical well would be more prone to leak?
So Dan, your question assumes a fact that I don't think we would stipulate to.
Could you describe the direction of the flow line? Did it go under the neighborhood or are there any rules on sort of locating development over flow lines?
There are not, the agency does not have specific rules for development being located over flow lines. And the first part of your question, there are flow lines from this well to a tank battery to the east. And at one time, there were flow lines to a tank battery to the north.
Existing to the west.
The existing active flow lines are to the west tank battery.
Several years ago, there was a home explosion about a mile directly down that exact line. Are you guys looking into that as well? Could this be related?
I am not aware of that incident, and so no, we are not looking into it at this time.
Can you explain what a vertical well is? Or like the layman's terms? What does it look like? I mean, what is it?
A vertical well is a well that the bottom hole location is directly underneath the surface location.
How many explosions have there been in the state? Do you track that?
Are you asking me about explosions related to oil and gas production?
Correct.
To the best of my knowledge, the answer is 2. One in 2005 and one in 2007. One resulting from a home that was built directly on top of an abandoned well. And one resulting from a mobile home built very close, if not on top of, again, I believe an abandoned well. Sharon?
I was wondering if you can tell me anything about what you know about this area. I've heard years ago, back in the 1870s, coal mining was really big in this area. Did that play at all into maybe some volatility?
I am not aware of an investigation that is going down that path.
Okay, folks, 2 more.
Go ahead.
We've heard from neighbors that there may have the apartment complex that's being built behind the home is putting in a fence and may have hit a gas line. Are you aware of that? Are you looking into that?
No and no.
Frederick Firestone, Fire Protection District is the lead agency right now. Does that mean that they would be the ones, or it would be the ones to come up with a clause first, and should they determine that the clause is linked to oil and gas, would the state commission take over that?
Frederick Firestone Fire Protection District is the agency that will determine the cause and origin of the fire. What COGCC's role after that would be, I can say would be limited to our jurisdiction, which would not include all of the aspects of the investigation. Last question.
Guys, we need to wrap up.
Can we just say where those 2 home explosions were?
I will get back to you, Sharon. I'm sorry. They were southwest, but I can't tell you more specifically than that. Thank you all very much.
Guys, they got to get back. There were a number of you, and some not in this room, have
I'm sorry.
emailed me with very specific questions about this. I fully intend to get back to you robustly. It just takes time. So for those of you in here who have done that, please be patient with me.
I'm sorry. I don't